welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited to see you here again. I'm so glad you're here to join us all on Motivation Mondays. They're back and they're here to stay. And today we're talking all about how to treat yourself after you make a huge mistake. None of us are exempt from making mistakes. I know I've made my fair share of mistakes and I'll continue to make a couple along the way. However, I feel like there is a process that we must go through when we do make a huge mistake. Like I'm talking about, like, this mistake is so bad that you are literally beating yourself up, you're feeling down, you're depressed. Those kinds of mistakes that shift the way that you view yourself because it was just that big of a mess up. I just want to remind you before we step into the video, when we talk a little bit more about the steps to take and how to treat yourself, I just want to remind you that no matter the size of the mistake, you are not a mistake. No matter the size of the mess up, you are not a mess up. So let's get into the process of how to treat yourself after you make that huge mistake. So the very first thing when you make a huge mistake, I think it's really important that before you do anything, before you heal, before you make yourself happy again, is you have to do the hard work, which is admitting to yourself that you made a mistake. Any good leader knows that you have to be open and transparent about where you are, what you've done, and who you are. And when you make a huge mistake, it's a really bigger mistake to avoid it, to avoid the fact that you made the mistake and to act like it didn't happen. So the very first thing, I know it's hard, especially if it's a mistake that you made and you may have to admit it to other people. You have to admit to yourself that you made a mistake. And that's okay that you made the mistake. But the first thing that you have to do is you have to look at yourself in the mirror and admit, I made a mistake. So the second thing that you must do when you make a huge mistake is you have to forgive yourself. It's so easy to make a huge mistake and then look at yourself like, oh my god, I'm a failure. Even if you did admit it, like, I did make a mistake, I'm stupid, I'm dumb, why would I do something like that? That's kind of what I do sometimes. And that is the wrong way to go about it. I feel like a lot of us, including myself personally, in order to, I guess, clarify the mistake, is I just talk down on myself. I'm so dumb. Why would I do something so dumb? Like, I'm just a mess up. I'm just this. I'm just that. And in the moment, I guess it kind of makes me feel better because if I'm all of these things, then it's okay that I made a mistake. However, that's not the truth. The truth is I'm not a mess up. I'm not dumb. I'm not stupid. I'm not all of these horrible things that I will call myself. The truth is I just made a mistake. The truth is in that moment I didn't use the best wisdom, or maybe I just wasn't aware of the other options that I had in that moment. And that's just the decision that I made, and it ended up being something that I didn't agree with in the future. So I think coming to terms with that reality that yes, you made a mistake, but you are not a mistake. However, you just simply made a mistake, and you have to forgive yourself for that. You have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, yes, I made the mistake, admit it. But secondly, you have to forgive yourself for the decision that you made in that moment. So really just put yourself at peace, knowing that it was just a mal-decision that you made in a moment. But that this one moment in your life doesn't have to become a monument for the rest of your life. So that is the second step. So the third step is looking at what happened and assessing the situation, and then figuring out the lessons that you learned from that moment. Now, it doesn't have to be a super long process. Doesn't mean that you have to spend hours upon hours. Just take what the lesson is out of it, because that's all mistakes are lessons. Because when you do something and it's not necessarily right in your book, that means that there is an opening for a lesson learned. So try to find that opening on what that true lesson is. And sometimes you may not even know what the lesson is right away. That may be something that you just may have to tuck away, and when it comes to you, it'll come to you. But if you can, try to assess it and figure out what it is that you can learn from it, so that way you can gain knowledge and wisdom and strength from this decision that you made, rather than living in defeat and beating yourself up. So the fourth step is really, I guess, the hard part. Not really the hard part, but the necessary part, the part that we all avoid, the part that we don't want to do, which is figuring out what your next steps are from there. So after you've figured everything out, you know, oh, this is what I learned from it. I admit that I made the mistake. I forgive myself from it. Now you have to take action. You can't sit in the defeat and sit in the sadness and the regret. But now you have to step out of that and physically make the next moves away from that. How are you going to progress from this step? How am I going to move forward? And how am I going to continue to live on with my life? So that's the next step, is the hard part, but you have to figure out, what are my next steps? You can write them down, you can just do them, you can talk about them, but you have to do them. That is how you get out of that. That's how you move out of the defeat factor, is you have to take action. Now, the fifth and final step. I selected 5 steps on purpose because 5 is the number of grace. And that is what the 5th step is you have to give yourself grace, allow grace to take over, and you have to completely move forward. You cannot sit in the past. You cannot dwell so hard on the past that it changes anything about your future. There is time for reflecting, and that's in one of the steps, which is looking at what happened and assessing the lessons learned from it. But once you get what you need out of it, you have to move out of that place and simply move forward and move on with your life. And this is so important, and I said this in the beginning and I will say it again. It's important to move forward and allow yourself to have grace to continue on with your life without carrying the mistake on your shoulders, without carrying the mistake on your back. Yes, you made a mistake, but you are not a mistake. Yes, you messed up, but you are not a mess up. So it's so important to take that load off of your shoulders. After you've done all of those steps, there is no more room for a doubt about who you are or what you've done or your capabilities. It was just simply a moment. Don't make a moment a monument in your life, and just take all of that, all of the positive things that you can from that moment in time, and then move forward.